Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Maps Are Dead with Mike D. I'm Mike Dauphinee. I am super excited to have Lucy, pronounce your last name for me because I always get it wrong. I'm in Italy, I should know this better. What's your last name for me? Nelly. Lucy Leonelli. Now, Lucy and I met when Lucy, you were at the time the EVP of the Talent Center of Excellence for Insight Partners. So Insight Partners is the one of the preeminent VC in tech investment in companies. Myself and my team, we're the better performance coaches for a number of Insight portfolio companies. And so to get to do some work for them, but we met through that context. But Lucy, when literally last night, when my assistant Rick sent me your profile, he's like, Mike, this might be your favorite conversation this month because I had no idea about all the other things you do. So I appreciate you making time to chat today. Lucy, actually, this is the thing that got my attention. Year in a life. Lucy is known for her self-described social tourist project, quitting a corporate role to immerse herself in 26 different British subcultures, A through Z. She spent a week in each documenting her experience in the book, A Year in the Life, Adventures in British Subcultures, published in 2022. Get this though. The cultures you immersed yourself in, battle reenactors, circus performers, nudists, including naked yoga and bike rides, goths, Morris dancers, LARPers, train spotters, parkour enthusiasts, vampires, Zeigai activists, and more. Does that kind of capture the book?
You got it. That's exactly it.
I was like, that's amazing.
FOMO, Mike. It was like just indulging this sort of terror of like the world has so much more to offer. I was feeling kind of blinkered, like having a good time in my role, but feeling a little bit like, this is my life now, a little kind of closed in, the same thing repeat, right? The same vacations in the summer and, ski. Very privileged, of course, but I wanted more. And so it was like, how can I cram in all these different, or just be all these different versions of myself? And also, self-explain, whatever it was, quarter life crisis.
And when I first reached out to you, I actually had known you were kind of even a shift a little bit. You're kind of in a pause. You're kind of on a little sabbatical in a little bit of that. And so I reached out because I thought, man, it'd be great. You talk to people who are in transition, right? Executive talent, you're bringing them in, but you yourself have kind of making some transition. You're on a break right now. So tell me where you are and what you're working on at this very moment.
Sure. So I'm now in the south of France, in Toulouse. My husband is from here, so we decided to spend a couple of years here immersing ourselves in the language and being closer to the in-laws for babysitting. Nice. And because I want to write another book. So I've actually already started writing a book about the death industry. That's the next. That's the next exploration. Yeah.
So you read my alley then, because like this, again, the whole point of this podcast is how people step into navigating transitions when no one else can tell them to follow this path or follow these steps. You've watched it and you're kind of living it. And we'll talk about Clifton strengths in the mix of it. I pulled up your themes from the last time. I have input, futuristic, activator, woo, and achiever. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, I was amazed by how accurate it was, honestly.
And when you took it initially, because we'll talk strengths for a second, but then we're just going to dive into the story. When you took it, when you kind of chatted through, were any of them stand out to you more than others? Was there the activator, the futuristic, was there anything in particular that you're like, you know what, these really resonate with how I approach the world?
I think the activator jumped out because it's obvious to me. That's definitely something that is a leading personality trait for me. And it's one that I wrestle with. The reason it jumped out is because it's one that I wrestle with. I've also heard it called, I did some coaching recently, heard it called a salmon. If you think about different animals and archetypes, it's like the salmon archetype that's desperately trying to swim up the stream, right? Fight against everything that gets in your way and make something happen. And I think I'd always seen it, or I'd historically seen it as a bit of a negative thing. Like it's something that this sort of need to be productive at all times. And it means you can sometimes not be able to relax and sometimes struggle to kind of zoom out and see the bigger picture because you're so obsessed with getting to that next point. So I'd seen it, I think, as a negative thing, but actually I had some coaching with someone from Clifton Strengths after, and she pointed out, which was a nice pivot point for me, that actually it can be a positive thing. And even though you got to lean into that strength and use the activator to help you relax. So, hey, maybe you're not someone that's going to lie on a beach and get anything from that because it's against your personality profile. Maybe if you do a puzzle, maybe if you do something that actually has an end goal where you can be productive whilst relaxing and turning off your brain. So it's just thinking more about it in terms of, okay, this is a strength. This is all these different things aren't necessarily weaknesses and something to fight, but there's something you can use to help get whatever else it is that you need in your life.
We talk about coaching being about creating distinctions so you can figure out what part to keep, what part not. And so even what you're describing, it's why we like Clifton Strengths is diving in going, yeah, people say, well, I don't like the beach. No, you don't like the laying on the beach, not moving, but reading a book. And so what will help you create distinctions? There's a lot of times people will say, what's the best thing you can do as a coach? And I'm like, help them understand that it's not all of it that's a problem. It's this part, but this part's beneficial. And that these talents, Gallup would actually call them talents even more than strengths, they're all morally neutral. It's all in how we use them. And the right tool on the wrong day is the wrong tool.
Exactly that. Yeah. And the framing, honestly, they're just seeing as, okay, you can turn this, you can lean into this, you can turn this into something really positive. And you don't have to feel like you're fighting yourself all the time. It's like finding, I don't know, feeling more happier in your own skin, and like you can direct things in the right way. Just learning the tools to sort of round the edges.
Yeah. I enjoy hearing people's stories. So I'm going to dive into the story here in a little bit. But before I do, is there anything, because I always like to make this useful, instead of me just taking out your time, if there was a conversation that you're like, you know what, Mike, it would be fun to talk through strengths in the context of journey. This would be something that would be worth us landing on in the course of this hour. Does anything come to mind for you?
So, I mean, I guess on the subject of this activator strength, so I want to explore this world, right? The death care industry. This is something I'm passionate about for a bunch of reasons that we can go into. And I feel because of this activator, whatever we want to call it, because of this talent, I feel like it needs to be a book. Right? I feel like I need to have something I can capture. I need to have something that is the end goal of this thing that I can say, physical, in my hands, give it to people. I don't really care if no one reads it, but I need to have this physical thing. But also, as you know, writing a book is a lot of work, a lot of discipline, a lot of grunt, a lot of sitting on your own in a room for 10 hours and just grinding through this thing, right? So is it really what I want to do? I don't know. But the activator in me just needs it to be something. And then I've got this other part of me that's like, but why? Okay. Maybe you can just explore this and have fun. Like, you don't need to make money out of it. It's an adventure.
Yeah.
And so that's a conflict I have in my mind right now, is why do I need this end thing to produce as a result?
Sweet. That gives me a target. Talk to me about how you got into talent. You know, you're in a pivot point right now, a little bit of a clutch moment, starting to write more. Because I want to know about the career part first, and then how that career ended up getting into actual writing and being able to hold both those things in tension at once while having a family and a partner and a life. Did you know you wanted to go into talent? How did that start?
Nobody does. Does anybody?
Right?
Let's be honest. No. We fall into it, right? We fall into it. I did a philosophy degree. I don't know what I wanted to do with that. Just be a thinker, I guess. It does teach you how to write. It teaches you how to, frame an argument, how to rebut arguments, how to have perspective and zoom out. Like, it's good for that, but that's about it. So I fell into this. I found the firm straight out of college. I think I started 2 weeks after college at a firm. Actually, a really lucky, fortuitous time. It made sense for me because I love people. I find people fascinating. I love collecting perspectives. Honestly, I don't know if I've got it right. So I'm always interested in should I have done that thing? Should I have done that thing? I'm always curious about the ways that people live their lives and how they frame things. So it made sense for me. I was really interested in business as a whole. And so to go in at the exec level and learn how these decisions are made felt right. So honestly, it was something that, okay, this is the first thing I'll do. I'll try it. If it doesn't work out, I'll do something else. Like, there was no real pressure on it. But I joined this firm when we were a boutique search firm, when we were 8 people. The firm's now big and successful, but it was early days. And so it was entrepreneurial. It was exciting. I had a bunch of opportunities. We did a lot of tech and professional services searches, was able to just be entrepreneurial in that firm and progress up the firm quickly. Made partner in that firm after 7 years. First female partner. And I think the first and last. No, I think there's been more female partners since then. And
progress is slow some days.
I know, right? We're getting there. And then did that for 3-4 years as a partner in London, and then took a sabbatical to write the first book, which we can come back to, and then was planning on being a writer. I went back into my boss at the time to say, I'm done. I'm going to step back. I'm going to go try and make this thing work. And he said, we need somebody to start up our American business, to be based in New York. And I'd always wanted to live in California. So I said, if we can do it in California, you've got a deal. And I was also working with a lot of tech firms at the time. So it made a ton of sense. I had so many clients already in Silicon Valley. moved over to California with a little carry-on suitcase and a head full of dreams, and started in an office in Mountain View, which was a cupboard. It wasn't an office. There was no windows. And built the business over the next 5 years up to 25 people. We were in in San Francisco. We had opened an office in New York and one in Austin, and it was fun. Again, it was entrepreneurial. Worked more and more with software, with a lot of software firms, and VCP-backed earlier stage companies, VCs and PE firms directly, and then some enterprise tech firms. From there, after 5 years, I'd been at this same firm for 13, 14 years by that point. So it was time for a change. Had my first son as well. So I decided to go in-house, went to Twilio during the rocket ship years. It was good fun.
Okay.
So for a couple of years, built actually was pulled over by an ex-client who was the head of talent to build the exec search team, the exec search offering, giving out everything to search firms they wanted to do in-house. So we built a team over the course of a couple of years to 2022, something like that, and did every single search in-house. So from C-level right through down to director level. And that was during the real boom time for Twilio. It was just past IPO, very fast growth during COVID, right? So extremely fast growth, maturation, bunch of stuff happening. After doing that for a couple of years, my boss at Twilio then moved to be the operating partner at Insight. So he said, we need to do this. We want to build this exec talent offering, Insight Partners. So he pulled me across to do that. And then I did that for a couple of years. It was really good fun. So I ran exec talent there. So my team was responsible for all the exec level hiring across the portfolio, just 500 plus companies, everything from early stage VC through to PE. And then I personally was responsible for CEO and board searches. And it was good fun. It was, working with meeting CEOs all day, every day. So it was really, really good fun. I felt very privileged.
That's a lot of intuitive. The next door opened. I think you described like 9 or more of the shifts in that mix from the book. Has it always felt that intuitive? Has it always felt how, of any of those, I guess maybe a couple ways we could do that, where there's some of those transitions and some of those changes in roles that felt more instinctual to you than others, that where you're like, this is something I picked and I went past it quickly, but I'm like, this was right. This was something I knew. And I stepped in, exactly what I thought. I had traction immediately. Which felt the most intuitive to you?
I feel like for me, they're two different questions. So they're two different answers. So the intuitive, obviously the writing the book was a wild year that was, off the map, was just totally like, let's just go do this thing. It was indulgence. And then the following, I guess these chances fell in my lap and I grabbed them. That's honestly what happened. And from a career perspective, being in exec search, to having the 3 lenses on that, made sense. So I had the exec search side, then I had the in-house side. So you see how actually a business makes decisions from the inside. And then the PE VC side is the kind of third, like I call it the trifecta, right? It's the third angle on being an exec search person. So you kind of complete the industry from all perspectives. So those moves all made sense. And I followed a boss who knew me, who trusted me. So you have that. In order to build something, to go through a transformation, which every role I've done since the move to the US has been a transformation, you need to have at least somebody in the business, ideally more senior than you, that trusts you immediately. Yes. Because you have to go in and you have to forge the rest of relationships. You have to build hearts. You have to build culture.
It is really relationship-based, truly.
Very relationship-based. You just got to have at least one person on side that's got your back, that knows you're going to deliver, because then you've got to go in and get everybody else on side. But were they what I expected? Probably not. So you say I went there immediately and felt like this is it. This is the right thing. I think no. I think I was surprised every time I moved in terms of what I could learn, particularly actually the move into VCPE. That was a very different kind of type of organization, because you are effectively a back office function in a financial services business. You're in a financial services business, first of all, which is very different, makes decisions in different ways. And also you're a kind of value creation, you're a value add function, and you're a cost. So there's a constant need to add value and to prove that you're adding value.
There's a lot of performance-based. It's not just relationship at that point. It's performance-based. Are you doing enough? Are we getting there? What's the cost of this? Is it worth the investment?
Absolutely. And you're only really measured on your last, what you did last, right? Over time you build trust, of course, but it takes time, a lot of time to build that trust. And you've got to keep it up. You've absolutely got to keep hustling at like as top pace all the time.
The reason I even bring it up is because I was thinking about futuristic. Futuristic is a theme in your top 5. And again, Clifton strengths don't work alone. They always pair up. They're like ingredients in a chemical reaction. So futuristic by itself in a bubble is long-term vision and potential. I mean, people with futuristic who'll say to me, I can see what my life looks like in 20 years, and I often reverse engineer. Activator, though, is hyper responsive and discovering in the moment. And so it's taking action, following traction, prototyping, experimenting, taking those things in. But what's interesting is that some people will say, oh yeah, my futuristic leads. So therefore I kind of see where I want to go and I kind of look for the traction that gets me there. But when I hear you talk, you're like, you know what? Opportunities presented themselves. I was responsive and then asked if they actually were going in directions I wanted or how I felt about them. So it's activators first, futuristic second, so to speak.
I think for me, those two working in combination are what's driven my life and driven my career decisions. The zooming out, getting it, okay, what's next? Then zooming in. I call it leaning into the LARP. So you know what a LARP is, right?
Live action role playing.
I believe so I did that as part of my book.
Yes, I saw the list. I was like, LARPers. I'm like, are you kidding? That's amazing.
It's like D&D acted out in real life. You're in like a forest with elves and goblins, and it's the geekiest, most ridiculous thing you can imagine. But it's also super profound because you're playing a role. You've got your phys rep, it's called, your costume, effectively. You've got the language you use, right? In a LARP, it's like ye old English. Or if you're in a science fiction LARP, it might be whatever. You use it.
Whatever it is.
But it's the same for everything in your life. You have the corporate LARP is the most ridiculous LARP, right? You move to a company, you learn the new acronyms, you learn the new language, you learn how to talk in that. And like working in a financial services business is different language to working in a tech firm, different 100%. Language to working in a search firm, different clothes. I wore suits when I was in a financial services firm. I wore like swag when I was in a tech firm. Like they're all LARPs to me, right?
Yeah.
And I think like a life lesson for me is self-awareness around this is a LARP, like whatever I'm doing, like when I'm with my kids, I'm in my family LARP, when I'm in whatever it is, when I'm doing I sing an a cappella group, I'm in my a cappella bubble with my a cappella LARP.
Nice.
Life is a series of LARPs, but to get the most, this is something else I learned from the LARPers, to get the most out of a LARP, you have to lean into it. Like you have to, as much as you know.
It has to resonate with you? Is that what you're saying? Like there has to be a part of you, or like you have to be committed to the part. You have to commit. You
are in it. You only have fun in a LARP if you're like, you suspend your disbelief. You're like, this is the most important thing right now. I am Storm of the Albion Forest. I need to win this battle, whatever it is. When you're in, as much as you might realize like, oh, hey, it's like nihilism. So you're in a role, right? You're saying, okay, I have to hit my sales number this month. I have to do it. When really, you know, well, I could die tomorrow. And actually, I've got this other thing going on and like, it's all for nothing, like whatever. It's all made up. Life is all made up. You could live that way and be like a Buddhist and be completely nihilistic about life. But that's not going to help you hit your sales number, right? So as much as I think like the zooming out and having the like albatross perspective on life is good when you make your decisions, but then when you make your decision, you're in it, you commit to it, you are in that moment, and you're not constantly like, was this the right decision? Or maybe I should have done that. So that was a very long explanation as to what I mean.
No, that's amazing. So what's causing me to think is that one of my clients is the director of hitting for a Major League Baseball team in the United States. And over the years, I've coached him since he was the head hitting coach for another team. And he will often talk to his players, and the players will talk about, they have a persona they put on at the plate. That the best of the best know that, you know what, you may feel whatever, but when you get on deck, it is a thing. And so they choose their wind-up, they choose their walkout music and things, especially, but the best, they have a role they play that they fully commit to from the moment they're on deck to till they either they hit or they go back to the dugout. But it's a person. They literally do that. But I've never thought of it as a connection to a LARP, but I can see how being committed to that story and something, because otherwise you're talking yourself out of it the whole time. There's the other, it's like you're letting in a stranger in that. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. And you're helping yourself just be in the moment, right? It helps you to be like, right now I have this, you know, when the best people you meet, you have group meetings, you walk in the room and they make you feel like you're the only one in the room, right? They make you feel like you are the most important thing in my life right now. People that they put their phone away, and actually a lot of CEOs do this. A lot of very successful people that I've met, they're not the ones that are like, they're late to a meeting or like, doing other things. Like that's not the most successful people. They give you everything. And so they're like in it. Like this is, I'm fully present in this moment right now. And it means you can be present in your work. And then you can go home and be fully present with your kids, right? That's the idea. It's like you're committed to whatever you're doing at that time, you're committed to it. So if you say, hey, I'm going to be EVP at Insight Partners for 2 years. That is what I'm going to do when I'm in it, even though maybe I don't think that's what I want to do for the rest of my life, and that wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do when I was 5 years old. This is the next couple of years, and so I'm in it. So I think that's where the two archetypes work well together, I think.
I didn't know. I never imagined we'd dive deep into LARPing. But as you interviewed those people, and you really, because again, you're being a part of it, you're participating like an anthropologist to learn the setting, basically. The authenticity of identity for people who chose this, because I would imagine that for especially for LARPers, that's part of their life, that connection of playing a part while simultaneously going integrity with my own identity. How much would you say that people found expressions of themselves and authenticity in going, this is not inauthentic to me? Sure, we're using Old English and we're participating in something that modern context may not understand, but it is an authentic part of me. Talk to me about the integration of identity while understanding the roles we play in professional life.
That's a great question. And how does that play? Is it authentic to do that, right? Is it authentic to LARP? And I think the natural inclination is to say no, that you've got to bring your 100% self to work, your 100% whatever. But actually, no, I think we are all made up of parts. Now, this idea of an identity is a very Western thing, right? We're obsessed with it's an ego thing. It's like ego.
Yes. Shadows on a cave wall.
We're not exactly. There's no real such thing as the self, arguably.
Yes.
But we're obsessed with ego and identity. This is who I am, and these are my morals. And morals change, values they should change, right? You should be constantly questioning. This is what I was taught as a kid, but actually, is that the right thing, or was that just because everyone's making it up as they go along anyway? Like your parents were making it up, right? So you should be constantly questioning. So I don't think actually there is. We're getting deep now, but I don't think there is necessarily one authentic self. I think we are made up of different parts. Sometimes we like to play, and LARPing is play, right? It's adult play. Yeah. Sometimes we want to play, sometimes we want to work, sometimes we want to be creative, sometimes we need to get shit done on a list, tick things off the list. So I actually think it's okay to say, I'm indulging this part of myself. This weekend is for play, right? Maybe you go to tech folk go to Burning Man, right? Whatever it is, like this is my play time. This is my work time. And I think especially during that playtime, you have the freedom to try on a different version of yourself. And I think we can get so bogged down with the version of ourselves that we assume society wants of us, or is the path that we've chosen, or is the path that has been chosen for us a lot of the time, or because we grew up in this certain place, that's what everyone does in this place, or in this certain class system, that's what everyone does in this class system. I think we get very blinkered and shut in by that, and I think the idea of LARPing gives us the opportunity to try on another version of ourselves. What if I was actually like this? What if I was like this? What if I dressed differently? What if I spoke differently? What can I learn from that?
But what's fascinating for me as I listen to this is that it's giving me, even now, perspective and a tool. I'm doing a series of episodes talking to recent college grads, undergrads, and some grad students who are job hunting and things. And one of them in particular, I just talked to Grace, and talking about the wrestling of, she wants to get into, actually kind of wants to get into the area you were in, into people and things, but is finding open jobs. Her degree was in behavioral sciences. And so she's like, there's no straight ramp to talent and development in HR in that way. But as she's stepping in, the thought of like the voices in her head of stepping in and taking a job of a receptionist at a psychologist office, and the roles and how people start to conform their identity to those roles. And I'm sitting here going, how much better for you to think of it as, no, this is simply a thing I'm doing. I am not my job, but I can know the role I'm playing today is that of a receptionist. And so, I think Jessica Chastain, in an interview, I mentioned it before to other people, talks about when she graduated from Juilliard and was trying to break into the business, but was working as a bartender. She would do one thing a week to remind herself that she was an actress playing a bartender, not just she wasn't a bartender. She would read a script, read the trades, send her bio somewhere, do an audition, at least one a week to go, I'm actually an actress playing a bartender right now. I'm not a bartender. It's not my identity. It's a role. And I think that distinction can be powerful in multiple directions, where the LARPers are choosing it as life, it may be their identity, but ultimately we really do, we have to put our minds are meaning makers. We assign the meaning it wants to make.
Exactly. In some ways. We assign the meaning. And you can strip it back to however far you want to strip it back. But yeah, I think we get hung up on who we think we are and what we think others think of us, right? That's another thing. It's like, where's my mom? What are people going to think of this if I go back to being this person or what? And so I think, you're right, stripping it away. And one of the most interesting thing is the LARPers are It's almost like, so when I was doing it, I'm quite an extroverted person, and generally speaking, but I was anxious. I wanted to get it right. Right. I wanted to like say the right things, play the right, like I was like, I want to be a good LARP. Like I want to like, I don't know how to say, I don't know how to play the game. I don't know how, anyway. So I really struggled. But then at 2 a.m., they call timeout, and everyone goes back between 2 a.m. and 10 a.m. I think it is. Everyone goes back out of their character and back to being themselves, like the bar shut and everything. And then at that point we were in like a bar, all like drinking mead, like surrounded by minstrels and stuff. And everybody went quiet, and I was suddenly like, I can be me now. And I was really confident, and everybody else was like kind of shy and kind of like went back to their normal kind of persona, which for a lot of people in that world is like a little introverted, like they're not playing a role they don't really know. And so the kind of, it was flipped, right? And I was like, oh my God, I can just sit there and stand there and like talk to everybody and wax and not be afraid anymore. So it just gives you that like, what if, like, opportunity. A distinction. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. How many times, because like, how powerful is it to let myself be me going, you know what, actually, what am I holding myself back on? What part of me is playing a role that actually needs to be free in some ways?
And that speaks to the making your own meaning, right? You're like the one, you're like, okay, I've decided. Your mind is powerful enough that even if you are a super introverted person, if you know that you're role playing, you can become an extroverted person, and vice versa. And vice versa. I think that shows us how powerful the meaning making, machine inside our head is, and the way that we frame things.
When your perspective on people, which again, I love the thought of like input, which is about gathering information, and futuristic is about seeing potential, thinking of you as an EVP in talent. Did you ever find that, to kind of touch on that briefly before I want to talk more about the writing, did you ever find people that you were like, man, this person has so much potential. I'm not sure if they can do the work to become their potential, but did you find you had a natural talent for spotting potential when you meet candidates versus others you're like, their potential doesn't go in the direction we need it to? Because futuristic at its root, they see potential in everything from a sandwich to a setting to a client to talent. Did you find that futuristic played out in that or were you more, I was wondering about where your achiever kicks in of, do they have track record? Have they developed the skills versus the raw talent? And what would you look for when you are dealing with at CEO level and you're dealing with the most powerful companies, IPO, very well, I mean, we're talking name brand things in the industry. What would come out for you that you're like, this is what I would see when it came time to spotting talent?
I think there's definitely something instinctual about spotting potential. So first of all, it depends on, if you're thinking about insight specifically, it depends on what kind of if it's a CEO search, what kind of a CEO you need, right? Because it depends on the situation of the company. Right. Are you cost cutting? Are you growth? Do you need somebody that's got more of a CRO background? Is there a pivot in sales? Are you going from product led to enterprise? I don't know, is there a problem with the product? So you're always looking for a different type of CEO. So, but you can pattern match to an extent. You can pattern match on things like exec presence. And I do normally get this gut instinct of, wow, this person has incredible potential, especially if you're interviewing people at the sort of CRO level that you think this person can go all the way. This person can definitely be a CEO. And part of me wants to think it's like instinctual, but I really think it is pattern recognition. It's having met so many people over the course of my career and seeing where they've gone and be like, okay, I immediately, when I meet this person, they remind me of these 10 other people that I've met that have made it, right? So I think as much as I want to say it's like a gut instinct, of course, it's patterns. That's how instinct works. But achievement is something, it's interesting because I think the industry was starting to get braver in taking a chance on first-time CEOs. So that's something that, frankly, we need to do, especially in software, because software is just exploded, right, over the last decade. Right. And so there aren't enough CEOs to go around. There aren't enough people with the experience to go around. So you are having to look at that level below and look at people that have potential to step up into the role. But when it's your baby and it's your investment, is this going to be the time when you go for the person that's never done this before? Likely no, right? Every time. Right. And you're always working with a different investor. Oftentimes you're working with multiple investors. So there's sort of cat herding situation happening. Yeah. And so convincing them to take this CRO that hasn't had the CEO seat before, but has this collection of, you do all the psychometric profiling, you do all the back channeling, and this person has the right collection of experiences to be really successful here. And they're not and also the world's changing. So actually, you don't necessarily want a CEO that was a CEO 20 years ago. They're going to bring a playbook, and that's not the playbook that you need now. So there's a lot of trying to convince investors to take first-time CEOs, but it's really, really hard to do. And when you do it, you just got to get as many data points as you can and try and look back and see When have we taken, for example, if it's a CRO into a CEO, when have we taken somebody like that before, and it's been successful in the portfolio? So you have to back it up with some data. You can't just say, take a chance on this person. They're great. I think my gut tells me they've got great potential.
Right. Which that input achiever part will make you exceptional at, because you'll have input typically has incredible recall. We call it an intellectual lint roller. Data sticks that you don't memorize. And so the ability to collect information that you won't even know is in there until your brain has recall on it. And so it's a very interesting theme. Research is typically very exciting and natural life-giving, but then achiever isn't measurable. Like, as you're thinking of, like, they said they've done this, but tell me, what is the actual measure? It can be put in a box, can it be piled up, can it be measured in some ways? So that is likely why you probably will make a compelling argument when you truly spot potential in some ways. But I think about you in those roles, you are literally at the intersection of people in major transition and asking about, does their talent meet the journey that my portfolio company is looking to fill? At what point, how does that conversation permeate you? Where you're like, wait a second, I was doing talent and I wrote a book, but then I've gone on this whole journey across America for the last 5 years or, the last couple of years or whatever that looks like. And how does that, so what's your internal monologue like that for you, where you're going, my talents, what I want, the direction, how are you navigating that to get you to this point now where you've gone, I'm going to step back into writing and working on my next project. How did you navigate those things? Going, I'm very successful. It's going very well.
Yeah. You're kind. Am I successful? You're kind. Okay. I think I've almost rejected it. Honestly, I think I've almost seen so much of, I know I don't want to be a CEO of a big tech firm. That's not my path. That's not the path I choose. I don't think I'd be very good at it, and it's not something I want to do. And in order to get there, you either have to be a founder, and it's hard to be a founder and to stay the CEO through a scaling business, right? You know,
the scaling changes. You're right. I get called in usually on the secondary after the founder's gone. That's what we call it a lot. Right.
And luckily, if you're lucky, the CEO says, I'm over my skis. We need a professional, the founder, we need a professional CEO, right? When you're lucky, that's how it happens, but it happens a lot. And it makes sense that it happens a lot. Or you're a professional CEO and you get called in as a professional CEO. So if you're a professional CEO, you've been on that career path. It's a linear career path. Usually or the vast majority are. So I guess maybe some 80%, I haven't got the numbers, but that feels about right. But 80% of people go up through the ranks in quite a linear way. Like they'll start maybe, I don't know, as a consultant or a strategy consultant, and then they'll go up and then they'll run a function, and then they'll go up and then they'll be COO, and they'll go into whatever it is. It's quite a straightforward path, and people are top of their game. But it's like when we would search for a CEO, is the biggest gamble we would make is, as I said before, a step up candidate that's still owned maybe they're a CRO of a 2,000 person company and they're going to be CEO of a 1,000 person company, right? So there has to be enough overlap in what they've done before. So it's very rare that you find someone out of the box. Like, oh, this person, I met this person, they're they own a ranch they run a successful ranch in Montana or something. You rarely get like complete wildcard candidates. And I would consider myself as more of a wildcard candidate in that I am so overwhelmed by the amount of things there are to do in the world and aware of my own mortality that I want to do all the things. And so the idea of having a linear career path like that it doesn't appeal to me. That's why I've kind of taken myself out to do these other things, and then I have another thing that I want to do next that's after I write that's very different again. So I think I learned people that I haven't worked with a lot, the people I haven't met a lot of are the people that make real pivots, extreme pivots. Like there was the wife of one of the investors I worked with was a professional harpist, and like very successful professional harpist, and was so good with her hands she decided to retrain as a surgeon.
Wow.
Right? And that's a pivot. How cool is that?
That's a pivot.
That is a pivot.
To know yourself, okay, these could do multiple things. They create art and heal.
Yeah. I want to use these for amazing story. I'm like, I never met, I talked to him so much about her. I was like, your wife is my girl crush, even though I've never met her, because this is so cool. But you don't meet many people like that. And in a headhunting position, when you are in exec talent as a headhunter, you really move people from a similar role to a similar role. It's very rare that you're looking for people that have made big pivots. So
do you think people talk themselves out of it? Do you think they get in the way? Because as people are sitting home watching this and they're going, what do you find that gets in their way of taking bigger steps?
helps societal pressure, that the meaning that they've made in their mind based on all of these various things, that this is not what's expected of me. The pressure, I think, of being a provider in a family, and that your family are used to a certain standard of living.
Yes.
So yes, you could probably, I know a bunch of like people probably, in their early 50s that could comfortably retire, but would have to probably take a bit of a step back in their life, or they have kids in uni or whatever it is.
The
and
trade-off and the financial investment, because that's big. I think people have a meaning. I think the fear of figuring out the resourcing ends up being the question. So we're pretty blessed if those of us are able to make changes, because if we have margin or a situation where we have a partner that can provide, like, that's a big part of it. And so I don't want to dismiss that for those making transition. But I think you also need a why that has to be big enough to try to find multiple ways to navigate the resource question. So I'm like, don't ever, so people say, well, I can't even think about that. We're just trying to make ends meet. I was like, actually, you need to have an understanding of something you just said that I want to step into next, which is an awareness of our own death and the fact that we're going to die at some point, the imminence of that, and the awareness of going, well, I have to have a why. When we'll do, I call it transformational coaching, where I'll get asked by CEOs or founder who's actually probably leaving their company, and they're like, what's next in my life? We start them with their obituary, pick a day to your death, a cause worth your life, finding a perspective on struggle and suffering and people you want to be responsible to. And we work backwards from obituary to tenure to 5 year to 12 month. You mentioned that a minute ago. As part of this process of awareness of the end, which I think probably leads into what you're writing next. Where does that come from? Because a lot of us act like it's imminent, like we have forever. Let's just outrun death. And I think it's critical to helping us be present and effective and fully alive.
Yeah. 100%. I think that exactly. That's what gives life meaning. It's the fact that it's not forever, right? So I was it 7 years ago now, had an accident on my motorcycle. I got hit by somebody who fell asleep at the wheel, just a freak thing, coming the other way. Should have died. It was really bad. Broke my neck, my back, everything. I was in hospital for 6 months, and then in and out, and then had to learn to walk again. And it was a thing. Should have died.
Had to learn to walk again. It was a thing.
Yeah, it was a thing.
Broke my back, my neck, my shoulder. Had to learn to walk again. It was a thing. Said very well by an activator with Woo. It was a thing. Broke my back. It was a thing.
It was a thing that I've now framed as like this really cool, super positive thing.
I thought LARPing was cool. No. The whole learning to walk again. That's good, Lucy. That's good.
See, being a patient is a LARP in itself. Anyway, so I had this. You didn't know we were going to get into this, but I'm gonna. Like I said,
Great.
I'm over.
If you're okay, I'm okay. This is perfect.
I had this moment when I first got hit, and I was in and out, and I sort of came back around while they were putting me into the MRI machine, and I was in a tunnel of lights, right? Literally.
You're in a, yeah.
But so I was like, oh, okay, this is it. I'm gone. I think I'm going to die. Two things. One thing, what ran through my head is, wow, what a life. I'm so lucky, had this most incredible life. And I think part of that was this year of adventures that I had, and all of the kind of breadth of experiences that I got to kind of jam into what was 34 years of my life. And I just felt this. And so that number one, which I think if I'd have just gone on a linear path, I would maybe not necessarily have had that like feeling of like, wow, I'm so lucky. It's okay to die because I've had this most incredible life. And also this feeling of peace, just this complete, like, when you do a test, you finish a test or you finish whatever it is, you've done your finals, and that feeling of like, I'm going to burn all my notes. Like I just, this that sweet release. And I felt like I don't have to remember birthdays. I don't have to text people back. Like the burdens of life.
All the little things.
No longer, and I didn't have kids at that point, so I think that's different.
Sure.
So anyway, so it was like this moment of like, wow, actually, like death can be this really like, and we don't know what's next, right? Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
Could be even better. We just don't know. But just this moment of like, wow, it's okay. This is on to the next adventure. Like that was my feeling. And then I was like, oh, actually, I've got a husband and family, and it would suck for them. And maybe that's what pulled me back. Maybe I was just always going to live. Who knows? But it was this like really, really, really profound experience. And I think so the reason I'm writing this book so I had this tattoo on my arm with a motorcycle over one of the scars.
Oh, nice.
And then I have this quote from Bill Hicks, who's a comedian that if you know him from the 80s, it's just a ride written in the handwriting of the surgeon that put me back together again.
So good.
about how not to take life too seriously because,
Mhm.
hey, any minute now, like, don't get
Right.
stressed about it. And I have it in the exact place where when I'm writing an email, it reminds me not to get stressed about an email, right? Like,
Let's
come
not
on,
overthink it.
really. There's leaning into the lark, and
Yeah.
there's also like an awareness that you could die at any time. So that you have to hold those things in
You
both
get to
hands.
choose it. I don't have to play a role right now. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to hold on to both things. Like, you're going to die, but that doesn't mean you should be a nihilist. It means you should enjoy and lean into every moment. But I truly believe that there's something called the death positivity movement. And there is this concept now of like, it is possible to have a good death. As in, we have this fear, this absolute fear of dying in the West. Like, not so much in the East, but in Western culture, we're terrified of it, and we don't want to talk about it. And it's clandestine, and it's hidden. Even like, the morgue is in a different part of the hospital, and it's insulated. And when someone dies,
Yeah.
they just disappear, and you never see them
Yeah.
again. Which is a very, very strange concept if you think about it. And it's quite new, but it's how we deal with death in the West. And so, yes, I'm exploring all the industries around that surround death care. One of them, I'm training to be a death doula.
Wow.
My training starts next week. I think you can learn a lot more about life from
Yeah.
being close to death and and
Yeah.
learn more from people who experience it every day and who like are able to hold that right in their hands every day. Like, this day is a blessing. We're getting silly now, but this
No, no,
day.
no, no. Actually, this is exactly where I want to go. This is exactly
Okay,
where I
good.
want to go. This is great. Because these are the conversations I have with when we're doing transformational coaching. My buddy Johan loves to talk about the fact that whatever your faith is, it's a spiritual conversation. Like, our lives and our success at its best is a spiritual conversation of who I am and going, wait a minute, you're LARPing when you don't even need to. I'm like, it's
Yeah.
like, what about you finding that way that's like me, connected to my values, connected to this understanding that the universe is very, very big and I can choose, but yet at the same time, what amazing that I get to choose how I show up in this moment is that there's a fascinating power in being able to create these moments and let our minds be meaning makers. Even if this moment meant something else before, I think about people I work with who overcome trauma, PTSD. I've worked a lot in Afghanistan over the years for NGOs and military and the Afghan government and helping Afghan refugees and going, that moment meant that, but you know what? I can have it mean something different today. And moments that felt like shame are now trophies because I can change the meaning of that because I actually have control because this moment is all that is real.
Yes.
To really go deep.
1,000,000%. I could not agree with more with everything you just said. Totally. That we frame it in whatever way we want to
Yeah.
frame it, right? Yeah.
And so as you think through the big question I asked, and you're like, hey, well, here's what I'm working on. You're now in the pivot of wanting to, a couple of things I'll notice is like with input and activator futuristic. One, you may find, again, as somebody with activator myself, when I wrote my book, some of the research is some of the fun. That's the most fun. It's like, it's the experiment gathering data part. It's way more fun than sitting alone going, yeah, my editor said he needed 3 chapters, rough draft by. And I'm like,
I know.
it's such a
Yeah.
thing. So you may really find that the research is a great phase. And so a strengths approach would be, even as you have to start pounding out pages, to build in research chunks so your mind knows that it's like the dessert payoff to go with the moments that are more isolated in some ways. That's a big thing. But a distinction I like to tell my coaches, hey, always coach your clients to perspective before action. And so you have meaning, pull back before deciding what's the thing I should do. What's the responses? We always say, start with who you want to be and then have the actions be about the growth and the having. We say, be, you do have. Figure out who you want to be. Then figure out if you were going to embody that being emotionally and spiritually and mentally, what would you do? And then you'll have the fruit of that being, of that becoming.
Okay.
Whereas the world sells us the reverse. They sell us a map. Do the following sit-ups, have the following abs, be loved and appreciated. Do the following investing, have the right returns, have financial security. We go, who do you want to be? And then if I was going to embody that, so me, I work to my obituary that I want to be someone who, when dead, they said he embodied fearlessness as much as possible. And it challenges me and corrects me. It challenges me going, Mike, did you pull your punch on that moment and not ask for that moment because you were being fearless? If you were the most fearless person in the world, how would you be? And then do that and see what the result could be, because you never know. It's an exciting new world. But this idea of starting back with this idea of going, you know what, who do I want to be? And kind of reversing out there. And so, but also the vision of what it is you want to actually have the impact. When you think about, you have an experience and a perspective already of you know what, life and awareness of the end. I care about how we're doing. This is fascinating to me, how the West versus the East approaches death. I think I'm going to write. When you think about who it is that would give you the most joy and be impacted by what you find on your journey of discovery, is there anyone, any audience or impact that gives you the most excitement at the thought of them receiving what it is you're creating?
It's such a great question. I don't think it's for people who are terminally ill, for example, which would be a natural, or someone who would read a book like that.
Oh, I'm writing this.
Right?
Yeah. Hey, I'm going to give you comfort potentially. That could be one thing.
Yeah, I don't have that perspective. And I think actually the audience is the kind of people we were talking about, the people that might feel stuck, people that might feel like, okay, just having this awareness and like awareness that death has 100% success rate, right? It's going to happen.
Yes. Yes.
It is everywhere, and yet we never talk about it. And so this thing, more of a sense of their own mortality in a positive way. So it's not like oh God, I'm going to die. I'm terrified now. It's, I'm going to die. And that means, oh yeah, I've only got maximum 40 years left. And it's fine, but I want to get to that point feeling of, oh wow, what a great life. I did exactly what I wanted to do, right? What a treat to get to the end and be like, oh, wow, this was acceptance of the path that you chose. And just thinking about, like you say, from your own obituary perspective, thinking about what you want to think at that point, and are you on that right path? So it's like the fear isn't, I don't want it to be fear at all that drives somebody, but it should be less around what does society think? What do I think of myself? What is everybody? What's the this linear path? And more around like, none of that really matters. What about me, my own personal, because when I die, all of that goes away, right? The world disappears. Also, no one's thinking about you anyway. We're always thinking other people, but no one thinks about you.
People aren't thinking about us.
Exactly. No one's giving you a minute of thought. So yeah, so like thinking more about, because yeah, when you're on your deathbed, that it's like everything evaporates, and all that really matters is like how you feel about your own life.
It's interesting to me because I think you have such a great perspective. I mean, again, having gone through your experience of, the bright tunnel of the MRI moment there and the rest. This idea, when I was writing Extraordinary, I remember going back to an old book, a mentor gift on my gave me, Victor, and again, you're a philosophy major, so you would have Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, the doctor from Auschwitz and Dachau, who in the response to Freud, who said pleasure was the point, responds that actually meaning is what human beings were hunting for, logos, and therefore, and when there's an absence of meaning, we inoculate ourselves with pleasure. And how he's like, when meaning is absent. And his piece was that at the end of the day, we needed a cause worth our life, a redemptive view of struggle and suffering, and people that we felt accountable to. And I mentioned this to a friend the other day on an interview, that I love the way he said it, was that he was studying, because he would watch these patients, these inmates with him, who some could endure any terror, any harassment, any violence, and others, he said, would die of despair. But his phrase at the end was, he's like, I realized those who survived were those who believed that, quote, to die meant that there would be questions in the universe that would go unanswered, and that to live would be something. So it was all about life in some ways. But what I think about at the end is that gift of also going, but actually I don't need to fear death, because I can live in that experience. And when I hear you talk about, even as you're writing, that it's not necessarily for those who are dying, but for the rest of us who are out here. Because I want to know what you know. So I have a friend who survived stage 3B melanoma cancer. And he says, one of the first things people, when they hear you have a serious form of cancer, is they want to know, okay, what were the first signs? He's like, and you think they're going to ask like how you're doing, but they want to know for themselves so they don't miss it. What were the first signs? Because we want to avoid it. But you've walked to that edge. You've gone, wow, this is gratitude. I feel like I'm running down a road, making decisions about the lane, and you're on the top of the hill going, Mike, actually, you don't have to switch lanes. You could get off the highway. I've seen the whole road. I've seen further down the road a little bit. I want to know. So my first question is like, hey, is there an audience? And if I said, do I need a perspective shift from your work that changes my paradigm? Is it habits I'm living in? Is it how I see myself? Because I think that question shapes the product of your research and your writing.
I love that. It's a really great point. And I hadn't thought that holistically about it. Honestly, I just thought the book is a way to capture it. Like you say, the research, the
Yeah.
experiences.
Yeah.
Like I write best when it's experiential, when I'm storytelling in the first person in the moment. So it's like getting to go and have these experiences and learn the lessons I'm sure I'm going to learn over the course of it. And the book is the product, right? The end result. But you're right. Like I'm not thinking about who it's for. And I think because I was thinking about who it's for, but I was thinking about that from a commercial perspective, which isn't the right approach. So pivoting that on its head and saying, who do you want this to impact versus
Because it gets richer for you. Because I think it becomes even richer for you because it's your gift. You're like, you know what? When it comes to the death experience, a lot of people will write about their experience. Some have interviewed a lot of people who are dying. You have your own firsthand experience. You have your own dealing with trauma, coming back. So there's a flavor that is yours that speaks to, you know what? Mine is about the potential of what our awareness of death means. And so it could be how you, even professionally, how you deal with your children, how you deal with yourself, and how do you find that space? Your ability to go, yep, I would like it to impact this. It changes the equation a little bit
I love
of what
it.
you create.
Yeah, I'm going to really think about that. I absolutely love it because I definitely want people to, I want to share the perspective, I guess, but not in a patronizing, not in a,
No.
and I think it has to be experiential. It can't be this happened to me.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, you should care less about X, Y, Z. That's not going to help, but really bringing people on the journey of learning these things. And because when something like that happens, you make yourself all these promises. Right. They're like, I didn't have a shower for 6 months. That first shower was the most amazing experience. Then I was like, I'm never going to take a shower for granted again.
And then life happens and you're like, okay, quick, I got my third shower for the day.
One thing I've kept, I was like on my way being like wheeled to an appointment or something. It was the first time I'd been outside for like months. And I was just singing to myself. I love singing. I was just singing to myself out loud going down the street. And I was like, oh, this is such a nice feeling and nobody cares. And why don't I do this more often? And that's the one thing I've retained is when I'm walking down the street now, I'll just sing. And people probably think, what a weirdo, but that's fine. Like, I'm never going to see these people again. Why does it matter? Or they might be like, I wish I would be confident enough to sing.
I want to be confident enough to sing. Exactly.
So you might find like the one thing that you retain, but it's a microcosm of realizing that all these things that we carry with us that we think really matter just don't. And you can break.
But that's that gift of Activator, though. And you come back full circle to the Activator piece in the beginning is the willingness to go. Part of what one of the things we teach is when you're trying to close the gap between a vision you have and the reality is where habits, experiments, attitude, and time. We call it HEAT. And experiments are things you do simply for the information. They don't have to work, but if they do, you can incorporate them. And going, you know what? Singing out loud, it's like we often get so performance oriented that we do things that are guaranteed to work, will have a guaranteed impact. We say, look, there's habits. They're like, but we say, what's your monthly experiment? You're literally doing just for the information. And so, and what's your posture to that of almost like you're LARPing? You're like, what's your posture? I'm going to be open. I'm going to sing and I'm going to sing in public and not actually care right now and see how I feel about that. If I feel it's not what I want, I'll move on. But to take that information and go, oh, wait, that's become part of my routine. That's shifted from E to the H. That's become a habit. That's powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What can you give me example of some experiments?
So I've had people do everything from like going, somebody who hadn't dated in 20 years going, okay, I don't need you to go on Hinge, but I need you to write a dating profile for this month. That's it. Just write a dating profile. Or I got an idea. Go on and everything from go ahead and write 5 articles like you're writing for Forbes. And just, how did you feel? I had a guy do an open mic night in comedy to go stand on stage and tell a story. Yeah. And so examples of submitting things. But I think even for you to really something, and this actually might not come out of your profile as much, but when I was getting ready to write, I was like, I want to write a book. And then actually by accident, a guy heard me give a speech at his nephew's graduation party. He was an editor. He's like, would you like to write a book? It's a small little tiny publisher. But I was trying to figure out what I wanted to say. And I ran into an author and she was like, well, you've gotta come up with your person. I'm like, well, I'm writing for anybody. I simply want the stories of the human beings I've met in this journey. She's like, if you're writing for everybody, you're writing for no one. And she's like, Mike, you need to come up with a psychographic of who it is you're writing for. And so I actually, in my head, created at the time an avatar of someone I called Press Release Pete. because they were 35 years old. And every time you talked to them, life was great, the job was great, and they were fine. Likely they were college educated, and probably had an MBA. They worked in tech/finance. They loved Formula One. They were about to either have a child or have their first real mortgage, and they were secretly scared that their ladder was leaning against the wrong building or they got on the wrong train, but the next demand was going to be something so locking in that they couldn't pivot anymore. But every time you talked, they sounded like this in public. And so in my head, I imagined them as I'm driving, it's my book, I'm driving down the road telling them a story, but their spouse or partner was in the back seat. And what was he going to be listening to? What was she listening to? What did that sound like? And the takeaways of somebody who loved my person I was writing for. I created like a psychological background. And for me, because I had a season where I mentored a whole bunch of 27 to 30-year-olds, and I realized my spot at the time was that. And so when I ask you about, you had this unique experience and you're gathering more in your research, who is it someone you're passionate about going, man, if I could sit in a car on a road trip with them and we could have deep conversations about how they could get perspective in their life that would impact the way they choose love, the way they choose to invest their time, treat their kids in the environment, whatever it is. This is what I would, because this is and then go, for me, it was a book. And like, even now with the podcast, I'm trying to add on other ways. Oh, there's other ways to have that message, deliver that. And so as you think about what it is you're creating, it might simply be a book. It might be an ongoing writing piece. It might be a collection of videos. It might be spoken word that you record and perform. It might be a stage play that comes out. Because I think of what you've done. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a one-woman show I'd watch. The stories of how LARPing became this moment in a tunnel where I realized, actually, no, here's my authentic self. Here's what I did. And here's how I found the courage to make those choices. Like, that's deep for me. But I think it comes out of not just this experience, but who is it you'd get the most joy, and how would you hope, what would be the fruit it would produce? Because that will shape the product you create as well.
I love it.
And so that achiever part kicks in. So that's the output, but I think you're right to lean into the activator futuristic input. It's the research part of the beginning. And then the achiever is like, oh, what's the measurable impact and to who? That'll help shape some of the product.
Yeah, it's getting the balance of it right. Because, like, for example, this morning I've been thinking about this for a long time, started, various kinds of research, but I haven't put pen to paper yet. And it's partly because whenever anyone asks me how it's going, they're like, oh, have you actually started writing the book? It's like the pressure of somebody else, right? So this morning I'm like, I'm just going to, like 15 minutes before logging in, I'm like, I'm going to start a Google Doc. I'm just going to write some stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
The activator in me, and it's probably all rubbish, but I'm like, I just need to.
No, I'm exactly the same way. I'm looking to do we're going to do another version of Extraordinary, because press release Pete, so to speak, is now 40, 45.
Whoa, okay.
And asking different questions. And now we're navigating different questions. And how do you step into that? So I was like, I put off diving in. I'm like, yeah, I'm the same way. But I think those moments, jump in any moment that hooks you in that, let research mix with, start to add it. The fun part is the research part with a little tiny bit of, I'm going to write 900 words, even if 900 words of me, I don't know what to write. And then go back. And then as the process kicks in and it starts to be shaped, knowing that one part of your strengths feeds the other. So that just being free and researching will feed okay, I'm going to sit down and pound out some words. And knowing, oh, I'm going to just edit. I'm not even going to write today. I'm going to edit back. I'm going to go back and I'm going to go back and cut and see what that comes up for me. But it's a good way to start. I would love to talk to you again as you get into your writing journey, if you'd be up for that. I would love us to chat some more.
For sure, anytime. So it's been good. I need to know, what is PRP? What did he and should he go for it?
I think ultimately, because yes, my thing with press release Pete is it was this idea of going, actually, make sure you're taking advice from people who are kind of going on the same journey as you. Not to simply follow, because that was the thing, is everybody has a path. And right now on the internet, everyone's like, do these, I became a millionaire like this. I'm going to sell you my digital products course online or whatever it is. Even for me saying, I often tell people, those people at the time couldn't have told you that's how they got there. They're giving you parts of their journey. It's a grocery store. Take what works, leave what doesn't, but have the confidence of going, I can be present in my own journey and where it is. And how your dad showed up for you and your mom showed up for you impacts that first 15 years of life and your strengths. You don't have to simply follow their path. You have to figure out, who is it you want to become? What are the values that you want to express that becoming through? and then take any action that
Yeah,
you can take in small
totally.
doses. And if the next step is too big, it's not small enough. To writers I'll meet with, they'll be like, oh, I haven't written anything yet. I said, great. I don't need you to write. I need you in the next 10 days between now and our next coaching call. Can you make the commitment to sit in front of your computer for 10 minutes? I don't care if you write. I care that you blocked your calendar for 15 minutes and sat in front of it and did not put anything else on. But in that 15 minutes, you sat in front of it. So, because they'll tell me, I'm like, can you write for 15 minutes? Some people are like, yes, I can write that. Others, I'm like, I don't care about the words. Let's just make the time. The calendar ends up being the step of action. And I'm like, Press Release Pete did that, but some of them get off track. And now it's, how do I stay passionate when I have kids who are 6, 8, and 10? And I don't want to mess with the stability that's providing something, but my kids need to see me fully alive. What does that look like? And how do I tell my partner, my spouse, how do I say to them, hey, are you tired too? Because we have to dream, especially if they're partnered. If they're not, I'm single, but if they're partnered, fine. It's a special act to learn to dream together and have a partner that's in it. I'm like, if you're in a partnership, there is no just, oh, well, this is my career and that's theirs. There is, but someday that's going to be separate lives in some ways, potentially, if you're not careful. And I'm like, how do you have the courage to go, hey, this is what I need. How can my gravity and yours be shaped by each other? But I need to be honest. I'm a little afraid that we're losing our commitment to growth in this window. How do we stay on it? What's the habit, experiments, attitude, and time that we're willing to let our commitment of who we want to be as a couple stay moving?
Interesting. Okay. So that's
how we're starting. The next one. So kind of extraordinary volume 2, but with a little more, how our moments that we thought were shame are actually trophies we need to carry.
I'm going to think about that.
So good.
Okay.
Lucy, thank you so much. If you're following along at home, if this conversation, we've gone some places. I hope it stirred up. If this conversation has actually brought things for you, listen, we'd love to give you a jump start. In fact, I'm like doing live video coaching. It's a thing called navigation brief. If you're like, Mike, I have this question, kind of like Lucy asking about her writing work and hey, what exactly is the output? If you have a question of any kind, job, whatever, there's a link called Navigation Brief in the description. Click that. Give me your 5 themes and the question you're wrestling with, and I will send you a custom 5-minute video or so on my thoughts on next steps. Love to have you. Also, like, follow, share, subscribe. All that stuff helps us reach more people. Lucy, thanks for being here. Really appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Mike.
We'll see you guys all next time. Thanks so much.